So we know what a function is, and we know its property that it can only send an input to one output. But let's look at that in the context of a graph of a function. So remember, if it's a function, each input goes to one output. So if you're looking at a graph, that means that each x should go to one y. But what does it look like when an x goes to two different y's? Let's look at an example. There's a graph, and here's a function. Now here is an example of a graph of something that is not a function. This is just the equation x equals 1. So we can write down what it is, but that doesn't mean that it's a function. It just means we can write down the equation of what's on the graph. So for each one of these, the x-coordinate is 1, and the y-coordinate is 1, 2, 3. So if you remember from our examples of what were functions and what weren't functions, we have an input being set to 3 different outputs, and really it's set to an infinite amount of outputs. It's sent to every different y-coordinate. So that makes it not a function. So what else wouldn't be a function on a graph? Let's take a look. At this point where the green line is, notice that that vertical line hits our graph twice, which means that at this x value, there are 2 different y values assigned to it on the graph. So at this x value right here, we're actually hitting the graph 1, 2, 3 times. So this x value, this input, has 3 different outputs, which definitely breaks our rule of each input having 1 output. Okay, let's generalize this. So, anywhere on the graph, if you can draw in a vertical line and it crosses your graph more than once, like in the examples we did, that graph does not represent the graph of a function. It's just a graph of an equation. So remember, every equation that you can put on a graph isn't necessarily a function. It's just a graph. For it to be a function, apply the vertical line test. See if you can draw a vertical line anywhere where it hits the graph more than once. If you can't find a spot, then it's the graph of a function. However, if that vertical line hits more than once, like this, then your graph is not the graph of a function.